What? Okay, there's not going to be any fancy editing in this one. Except maybe now.
Macaria by MACO.
Sorry. I have to make another video on this. I absolutely do. When something like this comes along, I can't just make one big giant commercial and then just leave it at that. No. This is special. I mean it. It's special. When something special like this comes along, I'm going to take the time and I'm going to make as many videos as I feel like I need to. Because I want to. By the way, it's one of the reasons why there has not been a video yet on the Deckware Zen Sarah 300B amplifier. I'm telling you right now, stealing the punch before I even make the videos, I absolutely love that amplifier. And I am taking my sweet time, sorry Steve, in making the videos that I want to make on that amplifier. So you know what? Doing the same thing in this case. So some of the things that I wanted to talk about in the first video, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to make this video into a 45-minute or an hour-long video. I decided, you know what? I cut those things out and I'm like, no, I want to make another video and I want to talk about them. So I'm seeing parallels in design features here to things that I tried in my own DIY baffles. That helped me. And I'm like, I'm so happy and giddy and excited to see these done at a professional level that I have to share them with you. So first thing is, vibrations is a big deal. It's a big deal, especially with drivers like these. It's a big deal for all drivers, but especially with drivers like these. If you don't believe me why vibrations are a big deal, if you've ever heard a tower speaker that decouples the mids and the highs from the bass, you'll kind of start to understand what I'm saying. Heck, Jay's latest speakers do this. They isolate the top portion. Jay-Z Aggie, is the YouTuber, Ron at New Record Day, just made a video about those speakers. It's one example. Verity Audio does exactly the same thing. They decouple completely the top cabinet from the bottom cabinet. A lot of other speaker manufacturers do this. Some of them actually do this inside the cabinet to a degree. Others actually separate the two, even though it looks like a full tower. Most are very separated because the vibrations, and in my experience, when I made my own butcher block version of these, so the butcher block was the full panel, or the ones that I made with MDF, when the bass driver, which in this case is a W15, this is a bass compensation driver made specifically for open baffles. It can pack a monster of a punch. Monster of a punch. I've had a fellow friend YouTuber with a much more successful channel than mine be in this room hearing the W15s, and he has said, I'm sorry, I just can't get this at my home. It's the nature of how this driver is made. This is what it belongs in. Now, that being said, if you let it, it is going to create vibrations on the baffle that come in effect the very soft and gentle materials that are used in a driver like this. Like this paper, cardboard, like thin cardboard-like material is so fragile. You don't want to give this to your 3-year-old or your wife to play with because they will break it. Oh, I just gotta, this will rip. It's very fragile. So vibrations do impact this. As I saw with the Lee Song's AL4 drivers, the whizzer on that was cut to a certain fine point that its own cabinet vibrations was affecting that driver and hurting it. Well, that shows that there is a reason to isolate the vibrations as much as possible from your mids and your highs. This gives you a far more transparent sense of sense of airiness and spaciousness, as well as better separation of the instruments, because things don't get fuzzy, right? What's sound? Sound is vibrations. Leaving it at that. So if you interfere with the vibrations that this driver is making from another driver, it's going to dull or smear what this does. Now, this is where MACO knocked it out of the park, because they went with a full 2-inch thick baffle material. 2 inches. All their baffles are 2-inch thick. The granite, the quartz, the walnut, birch, it's 2 inches thick. Combine that with the heavy duty, thick gauge metal base that these things sit on, both the floating and the regular grounded ones. Okay, I haven't weighed them, but having held them in my hands, they weigh 10 pounds plus each base. That's not nothing. The other thing that's happening too is down there's another thick metal plate with these big bolts that is locked right in to the baffle. Now, it has the MACO logo on it. I am sure that this was done for aesthetics and look, to also put the MACO logo on the speaker somewhere so that it matches the whole wood to metal look, or stone to metal look that the Macarias are built around. Or was that plate put there in the test designing process as further limitations to the vibrations that can be created off the baffle? I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning was. I'm tending to lean that it was a happy accident that it ended up helping reduce the vibrations, because I think they were going for aesthetics. I didn't dare ask the designer. Maybe I should have. So, example, on these versions of the baffles, I have these massive structural screws that bind these things together, and they're glued. You know what? When I added this afterwards, this piece of metal, the transparency overall went up. But it all contributes. And in my experiences, every time I've made baffles, the best sounding baffles, when both drivers were being shared in the same baffle, was the ones where I had a base, a base for the baffle, that I was able to add weights, bricks, pieces of granite on it, to add weight and reduce vibrations, actually. And that makes a huge difference. The heavier it is, the less vibrations there are, the better this performs, and the tighter and more detailed the bass performs. So they knocked it out of the park with that. But there's more that they're doing also to help this. Over here, on the full range driver, you can have baffle, driver, or baffle, driver, meaning back mounted, front mounted. I've tried both. When it's front mounted, I found that the reflections coming off the baffle were a little bit much. Just a little bit much. That's why with now where I'm at, after many versions, I rear mount them. Not only are they rear mounted, you can't see it from where you are there, but if you come here, you can definitely see that there's a little gasket here that sits. Like baffle, gasket, wish I had a third hand, driver. There's a gasket separating the two. This gasket looks like it's made of a type of metal, again, which is where the pins are located to fasten and tighten the driver onto the structure. But I'm telling you, this is also acting as a little bit of a vibration absorption or a dampener between the driver and the baffle. And I have done this as well in my baffles, just not as professional and good looking as this. I used adhesive felt pads sitting between the baffle and the rear mounted drivers. And when I did this, that extra sense of vacuum tightness of the driver to the structure, audibly, what it did was it made the driver feel more transparent. Again, that relationship between the baffle and the driver always comes into play. Always. You got a better sense of separation. You got a better sense of detail retrieval. Not a fatiguing detail. It just felt more effortless because you weren't getting as much interferences from the vibrations. So yeah, definitely that is helping combined with the weight. It is helping the level of transparency that is giving this glorious soundstage and sense of realistic detail in the sound. It shows the performance and the potential of this driver. It's really good, really, really good. I can tell you there's a difference, an audible difference, again, contributing to the sense of transparency and performance of the full range driver. When I screw in the driver directly into the baffle, tighten it up, it is not as good as when I use pins that then I can use bolts to really squeeze and tighten that driver onto the structure, creating a vacuum tight seal. And they do this. It's not just screwed into the baffle. Like I said, there's a gasket and the driver sits on this gasket. So it's like a double whammy to help reduce the vibrations. Back to having the drivers rear mounted. This is where also I found that when I rear mount mine, and then when I added a shallow horn, it gave an extra sense of presence in the mids, the upper mids. Really more than anything else. Right where the upper mids meets the highs in the detail, I found it's a little bit more fluid, a little bit more textured, there's a bit more detail when there's a horn. It seems to kind of bring the voice, especially the voices, it kind of brings the presence of the voices a little bit more, with a little bit more density in the space, giving that hologram more sense of tangibility in the stereo imaging. When you close your eyes or you turn all the lights off and you allow your brain to focus on this sensory and this if you fart, but try not to fart, so that you can just focus on your ears as much as possible so that your vision is not distracting your brain. Wow! This is like the hologram. This is a Star Trek level presence. It's amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So yeah, so they did these little very shallow horn, the little shallow cuts. Now I know that this was intentional for audible and sonic characteristics. This is not just from a design purpose. They do make a difference. I know, because it makes a difference on mine. Even though mine are a little bit sharper of a shallow horn, these work fantastically well, and they help actually give a little bit more dispersion to the sound. I'm capable of sitting two people side by side, no problem in my space, and both people side by side are getting the sweet spot, are getting the soundstage, and that's actually far better than with my system. My system with my speakers using the F15s, which these are not F15s, the sweet spot is much narrower on my speakers. This one, it's definitely wider. I can tell. And I think, in my experience, the bigger the room you have and the farther apart these can sit, the wider the sweet spot will be. I'm pretty sure that in some bigger rooms, you'll be able to have 3 people wide, maybe even 4 people wide. For that, it's definitely humiliates my speakers when it comes to the off-axis magic. And this could be the angle of this might be helping, because mine are much more pronounced, whereas these, like, the angle is like kind of like this, whereas mine is like this. Yeah, that's also making a difference. The soundstage, it's just much more pleasant for multiple people to get that magic effect in the room compared to my own. But again, it's all relative. Like, if I'd be sitting closer, I'm sitting about 8 feet away from these, and they are between 8.5 and 9 feet apart. The smaller those dimensions become, the narrower the sweet spot will get. The bigger that is, the wider that sweet spot will get. But definitely a heck of a lot better than mine. And I see a difference between the F15's performance off axis compared to this driver, whatever this is called. Another amazing thing about this in the back, it's a harness. So when you buy these speakers, day one, use them with the crossover. It's great. And then when you decide to go crazy, hi-fi cave style later on, you can biamp these puppies. Yeah. Yes, you can. Because when you go crazy, and you know what my philosophy has become? my philosophy has become, I don't want to compromise anymore to try to fix the problems of a speaker or a system. No, I just want to maximize the strengths that my room allows, that my system can do, so that those strengths become so good in their performance that I don't care about the flaws anymore. That's what I've been doing. And that's why I keep going down the rabbit hole of curiosity. I want to find out how I can keep maxing the strengths of the stuff that I'm using. So in this case, it is outstanding out of the box. Because hold on, what I'm saying, I get it. It's not for everybody. You got to be a little messed up in your mind to go in the direction that I'm about to talk about. The direction of biamping. When you biamp these, let me tell you, I have done it, set it up exactly the same as I use my DIY baffles. And for all the baffles that I have where the drivers share the same baffle, this, when I use Class D amplification, down there from 30 to 300 hertz and 300 B tubes or 211 tubes up here. Are we allowed to say this? Holy fucking shit. Pardon my French. The performance, it is absolutely wonderful. It is wonderful. I don't know what accent I'm picking right now, and I'm sorry. The only thing I know for sure, it is not Mexican. Right, cabron? Anyways, yeah. Wow. Destroys, humiliates all of the frickin' baffles I made myself. But I'd be like, wait, what about your last version of the baffles where the bass driver doesn't share the same structure? That's a completely different game. Guys, sound waves under 100 hertz are omnidirectional. So, okay, I'm sidetracking a little bit here. For bass, you know what? No, let's go back to the MACOs. This is going to be part of my reaching endgame in your sound, part 2. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the relationship of why it is I place my bass drivers separate now from my mids and highs. So back to this. When I biamp them with my system, it is just glorious. Glorious. Humiliates any DIY open baffle that I've had in my room before, by far. Yeah, but your DIY baffles didn't cost you $10,000. Guys, go look at open baffle speakers. All the other competitors out there, I think at the exception of the Caladan speakers, all cost $6,000 and up. Of course. And none of them use a baffle of this quality, thickness, finish, and weight. None of them. They all have their strengths. They all have their pros and cons. You've heard most of them at shows. When these are at show, I think they're going to be at Expona. Do yourself a favor. Go meet them. Go. Am I saying this is going to please everyone? No, of course not. It's a question of taste, question of flavors. Absolutely. It'll even depend on how you feel that day. But guys, if you've always loved the open baffle, airiness, transparency, but always felt that bass needed a bit of energy to satisfy your gut and your ribs, well, this is where it helps having a bass head also be the designer of these speakers. Because this bass driver, wow, it can pack a punch. That's what I'm telling you. If you have a freaking wood floor over an empty space in your home, get the floating basses. Because the floating basses have a gasket, a dampener inside that the baffle sits on, which makes them sort of float. I think the floating basses are worth every penny. They really are. They really are worth every penny. This was me completely rambling on about the MACOs a little bit further. Seriously, when I get to Expona, go check these out. I wish I could go to Expona this year. I can't. I just don't have the time. Maybe next year. Maybe next year I'll go. But this year I can't go. Thank you very much, MACO. Again, Phenomenal, spectacular, absolutely love these. This doesn't come around too often. So next, I really need to talk about the Zensara 300B from Deckware. On that note, I will leave you all with a little bit of 1980s Saturday morning cartoon philosophy.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching today's video. Make sure you subscribe, click like, ring the bell so you can enjoy our future videos from Hi-Fi Cave. And remember, don't say you don't like it until you try it. I love you.